In the hours after the election, well, there was mass confusion on who was winning. One thing was for sure, U.S. voters showed up in record numbers. And as we know, choosing Joe Biden as president-elect, much to the dismay of Donald Trump. So just how did Trump lose the America he was so confident in winning? Joining me now from Washington is Bloomberg Businessweek columnist Joshua Green. Josh, it's great to see you today. You wrote a story titled How Donald Trump Lost America. We're going to get into the details in a second, but let's just start with the easy question, or maybe difficult one. Why did America fire the president?
Well, I think the short answer to that is they didn't think he was doing a good job. I mean, we have an economy mired in a historically deep recession. We have a global pandemic that has cleared up in a lot of countries, but is getting worse in the U.S. I think in the end, voters just decided that he wasn't up to doing the job and that it was time to make a change in the Oval Office.
That may be the case of the outcome of the election, but at the same time, the president was able to expand his base and expand his support among many different demographic groups. How do you read into that?
Well, it was a fascinating election in a lot of ways. I mean, Trump absolutely did expand Republican turnout, expanded the Republican base in a lot of close races Democrats were hoping to win. But he was also the catalyst for the largest Democratic turnout in history in what's likely to be a 5 or 6 or even 7 million vote popular victory for Joe Biden when all the ballots are counted in California and elsewhere. So there's no question the election was all about Donald Trump. That actually had some positive effects for down ballot Republicans in certain races in Congress and in state houses. But I think the problem Trump had was that he never tried to expand his own coalition. He never tried to bring in voters who were opposed to him. And as a result, he suffered a historic one-term loss.
Now, to that end, you wrote about how Trump conjured up an image of America that didn't necessarily line up with the way that a lot of voters actually saw their country. What was this America and what is this America? And how did that play into the decision that voters made on Tuesday?
Well, I think in a nutshell, it was sort of the Fox News version of America, one in which Trump is this strong, triumphant hero who is, leading the economy to greatness and has the virus on the ropes and is, beloved by Black and Hispanic voters along with white voters. And is unfairly maligned by Democrats everywhere. I think most people in the country looked at the state of the country, looked at their own lives, looked at the economy. There are 20 million people getting some kind of unemployment benefit. As we said, the virus is raging across the country, and looked at the image that Trump was trying to present and said, that doesn't look anything like my own life. I'm tired of this and I want to try somebody else. And Biden, I think, very shrewdly ran as the sort of anti-Trump, this calm, sedate, old guy unifier who doesn't spend his time on Twitter and isn't a bomb thrower, and is pretty much the opposite of that. I think after 4 years of Trump and the results that we have right now, that was it. And enough voters just decided we need somebody else in the Oval Office. Let's give Joe Biden a chance.
Well, the president did, Josh, try to paint Joe Biden as this sort of radical socialist. And it obviously didn't work when it came to the presidential election, but I'm wondering if that actually worked a little bit when it came to the House and perhaps even the Senate, because while Tuesday might have been a good day for Democrats at the White House, it was not and is not a good period of time for them when it comes to the House and the Senate. They lost seats in the House and they will likely not have control of the Senate. What does that tell you about this idea of Democrats being painted with this socialist brush?
Well, I think it's something they have to guard against. I'm not sure how much of an effect that really had. I mean, a lot of the election analysis, just in the couple days since the results became clear, is that the idea that Democrats were painted as socialist was necessarily what drove Republican gains. I actually think it was a positive referendum on Trump and the kind of Republican Party that he wants to win. That he was able to turn out, millions and millions of white, non-college educated voters who hadn't voted in 2017, who didn't vote in 2018, but they did come out for Donald Trump in 2020. Now, maybe part of that was the specter of socialism taking over their lives or what have you. But I think until we really see some deep dive analysis of turnout and why people voted and where they voted the way they did, I'm not sure we can make that conclusion, but it's certainly something a lot of Democrats I know were worried about. On the other hand, if you look at things like, one of the big fears that Democrats had was that the racial justice protests in places where Black men were killed by the police in Minneapolis, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, in Atlanta, Georgia. Biden wound up winning all three of those states. So I wouldn't be too quick to rush toward the conclusion that charges of socialism were what hurt Democrats. Because if you look at the guy on the top of the ticket, I mean, Joe Biden has plenty of faults, but passing off a 77-year-old moderate white man and former vice president for Barack Obama as a socialist, I think it was too much of a stretch for voters to really buy.
Yeah, it certainly didn't stick. Bloomberg Businessweek columnist Josh Green, live for us in Washington. Josh, it's always great to see you. Thanks for your time this afternoon.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.